Hello, Rustaceans. Welcome to another Rust programming tutorial. So today we are going to be diving deep into the fascinating world of variable and mutability in Rust. I've actually been waiting for this particular section for some time now, and I know it's going to be a very interesting one. So, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to be looking at variables and mutability in Rust. And by default, variables in Rust are immutable. This is one of the many features that Rust offers to promote safety and easy concurrency. However, we still have options to make variables mutable. So we're going to be, exploring that and trying to understand where we may want to use immutability and why. But before we do that, let's first of all go ahead and set up a new Rust project. So quickly set up a new Rust project. So to do this, I would say I would create a new project and I'll call it variables. So I'll say I'll go new, I'll go new, I'll call it variables. And yeah, so with this command, we've successfully created a new Rust project. So what we'll do is we'll cd into that variables using VS Code. So so now we have our new Rust project. Taking a look at it, we have the basic setup, which is the main file and contains the hello world and everything. So I'll go ahead and zoom into this so you can see better. Yeah. I've noticed that in my previous videos, I do take a lot of time explaining a lot of necessary concepts. So I'm going to try as much as possible in this video to keep it short. And this particular section, it is the section, or I think chapter 3 of the Rust programming book, which is majorly focused on common programming concepts. So because I want to keep it short and simple, I've decided to break this video into 2 or 3 parts. And I think this is, let's say chapter 3, version 1 or video 1 of that series. So we're going to focus on variables and mutability. Let's get right into it. So the first thing we'll do is I'll first of all take off this hello world and let me just declare a variable. So how we declare a variable in Rust is very easy. So we use the let keyword and we print. So if I run this, so run cargo run, yeah. So we have the value of x is 10. So we've just done that. So we'll try something else, which is we'll try to reassign the value of x from 10 to 20 and try to print it and see what happens. I'll run the code and see what happens. I'm sorry about that. So I'm not going to use the let keyword this time around. I'll just quickly then go ahead and save this and run it again. Yeah, so I get an error, and this error says cannot assign. So we cannot assign twice to immutable variables x. So basically what this is saying is that we cannot assign another value after we've already assigned here to x, which has already been assigned on line 2. That is the error we are getting. So what this error message is telling us is that, these variables in Rust are by default immutable. So Rust doesn't allow us to do this because it can lead to unexpected bugs in our code, and it is crucial to get. It is very important to get these errors at compile time, because it helps us to understand what is happening in our code, and errors like this can be very difficult to find in our code. So with this, we would go over to the next point, or the next aspect of this, and is the fact that what if it's in a situation whereby we want to do this? So we can afford to make our variables mutable by using something we call mutability. And so we can make our variables mutable by using the mute keyword, which is written like this. So we have something like this, mut. So you can use that to make our variables mutable. So in order for us to have our code run, we can just say mute and save. Once we do this, and we run this code again, so I'll quickly clear. So you can see that now we have, the first one, x is 10, and we have the second one, x is 20. And the reason this was possible is because we made our variable x to be mutable. Basically, how you define a variable in Rust, how you make it mutable, and showing how you're not allowed to reassign a variable in Rust, because by default they are all immutable unless you explicitly say you want it to be mutable. So the next thing we are going to go over to now is constants in Rust. So basically, constants in Rust, they are like immutable variables, but constants are values that cannot change. However, they have some difference between constants and Rust. And the first most important one to note is that constants do not use the mute keyword. So they are always immutable. So let me just write that down here. So I'll say diff between constants and variables. So the first one is they are always immutable by default. So you declare a constant using the const keyword. So declare create a constant using the const keyword. It's using the const keyword. This is the first one. I'm not going to go ahead and write everything, so I will just paste it here for you. But basically, I would go ahead and talk about each and every one of them. So the first one, which I've already written down here, is you can create you create a constant using the const keyword. Second one is they cannot use the mute keyword, which means they are always immutable. The third one is constants can be declared in any scope, including the global scope, which makes them useful for values that that's many part of your code might want to use or want to know about. So one of the differences between constants is that constants, are only set to expressions, not results of value that could be computed at runtime. So naming a constant is the usual convention is to use capital letters. We always use capital letters to name a constant. So in the description of this video, I'm going to be listing out these 5 points. So now, how do we declare a constant in Rust? So it's very simple. So we can say at the top here, our main function, you can say const. So remember I said we use the const keyword. So we say 3 hours. In seconds, and we'll give it a type of let's just call it a U32. A small letter U32 type, and we'll say 60 multiplied by 60 multiplied by, okay. Or save this. Using capital letters here are a convention in Rust to always use capital letters to declare a constant in Rust. So constants are valid throughout the program execution within the scope which they have been declared. So this particular scope which they have been declared, they'll always be valid. So this makes them very useful, to be used in multiple parts of our application. I'm going to talk about shadowing. And what is shadowing in Rust? So basically, in Rust, you can declare a new variable with the same name as the previous one. And this is what is known as shadowing. So basically, declaring a new variable that has the same name as the previous one. So how is this done? So let me quickly go ahead and show you. So I'll call this shadowing. So the next thing I'm going to talk about now is shadowing. So like I mentioned earlier on, shadowing, in Rust, you can is a way in which you declare a new variable with the same name as the previous one. So now let's say we have something like let y be equals to 6, and we can now say let y be equals to that same y which we declared on line 12 plus 3. We'll save it and we'll create another scope inside our main function. So another scope, and this scope would say let x let y be equal to y, and would multiply it by 4. 4 in here would print. So let's just print. Just to save time, I'll copy this and paste it downwards. So here. And this is the value of the outer. Or I'll just going to say this is the value of y. And I'll clear this. And I'll comment out these both lines just for the sake of testing. Save this. And once I'm done with that, I save the program and I'll run it again. So say I go run, and I'll get two things. So the first one I get is I get this is the value of the inner scope, which is 36, 6, and we get this is the value of y, which is 9. So what is happening here is that we on this line we declared y to be 6. Here we shadowed it. So we say 9 plus 3, um 6 plus 3, because y here is 6 plus 3 gave us 9. And in our inner scope, remember that y is now 9. So 9 times 4 is 36, which is this. And on our outer scope, we still logged 9, which is coming from 9, line 14. So basically, this is how um, shadowing works. So, on line 12, we did something called binding. So we bind 6 to y. Then we created a um, new variable y again on line 14 by shadowing the original one and adding 3 to it. Then on line 17, which is another scope, so inside that scope we created um, another y, and here we now shadowed it with multiplying it by 4, basically, if that's the right word. But what we did here is we multiplied whatever value we got from here by 4, and that gave us 36. So when you go ahead and run the code, you see that we get 36 and we get 9. So basically, shadowing is different from making a variable mutable, because Rust will give you a compile time error if you try to reassign a variable without using the let keyword, which I think we saw in the first section of this video. But basically, shadowing allows you to perform transformations on values while keeping the variable immutable. So another difference is that when shadowing, you can change the type of value but reuse the same name every other place, like we've seen in in our code. This is like a summary of everything. So in this video, we looked at how to declare a variable, looked at mutability, and we looked at constants, how to declare constants, and we also looked at shadowing. So I would say thank you for joining me on these tutorials on variables and mutability in Rust. If you find this video helpful, and if you love shorter videos like this, please let me know in the comment section. Don't forget to like, subscribe for more videos that will be coming soon. Thank you and bye.